Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, at the recent Dynatrace Perform event, I got chatting with Mack from Wiley, who have got a great reputation for helping people and organisations develop the skills and knowledge that they need to succeed. Essentially, they're bridging the higher education gap by delivering content solutions in new and innovative ways, essentially using technology to enrich the learning experience. They also partner with educators and institutions globally to achieve success. And their print and digital solutions also enable students and instructors worldwide. And one of the things I've always loved about them is that they encourage learning to be a continuous, lifelong experience, and that it's an integral, essential part of every stage of building a career. But where does technology fit into that? And as they were participating in Dynatrace's virtual Perform conference this year, I wanted to find out more about how they're adopting the Dynatrace platform and what benefits Wiley has seen since implementing Dynatrace. And of course, lots more. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to New York so we can speak with Mack from Wiley. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Neil. Great to be here. I am Mack. I'm the CIO and CISO at Wiley. My role at Wiley covers much of the technology organization that isn't building the applications, right? So this includes our end user services teams, our operations teams, platform engineering, as well as security, privacy. So pretty broad range, even down to our DevOps team. So very tightly integrated with those teams that are building product as well.
And we will have people tuning in and hearing about Wiley for the very first time. So for those people, could you just tell me a little bit more about Wiley, the kind of problems that you solve for your customers, and of course, your role there?
Sure. So Wiley drives the world forward with research and education. Through publishing platforms and services, we help researchers, professionals, students, universities, and corporations to achieve their goal in this continuously changing world. You know, most people who know Wiley as a publisher, but now really more than ever, we're a tech-enabled research and education company. We're a global company with over 7,000 employees in more than 22 countries. And I will also just say that one of the things I love about Wiley is that I get to use technology to improve education and research. Look, there's a lot of things we can be doing with our lives. And the fact that I get to spend my most of my day helping people learn better, helping provide more accessible education, helping provide better research is really a privilege and one of the many things I love about being at Wiley.
It's incredibly cool what you're doing there. And you did mention a few moments ago that the world is continuously changing, possibly even more so than we've ever seen in both our lifetimes.
I think faster than ever now, Neil, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, what challenges is Wiley facing today when it comes to both its IT environment and its security?
Yeah, it's interesting. You speak about change, and I feel like things are changing faster, and those changes were only sped up by COVID-19 and the pandemic. If you look at everything that Wiley does, we are going through a pretty massive transformation. So I've only been with Wiley about a year and a half now. And when I started, so this is prior to COVID-19, our CEO, Brian Napak, said that we're not in a single market that's not going through massive transformation. And he's right. When you look at education and the move to a tech-enabled education, the move to online or hybrid education. If you look at research and the move to open access, if you look at professional learning and the transformation to, again, online education, and the way that that's not completely supplanting traditional methods, but completely enhancing it is just amazing. So at a very broad level, we're changing completely. And our industries are changing completely. And we, as a technology organization, have to enable the business to deliver on those changing needs in a very agile and adaptive way. I've been taking a lot of time to talk about kind of the evolving role of the CIO, and it's pretty amazing the changes that we as leaders need to go through to make sure that we're responding to the changing technology landscape, really moving from internal focus to customer focus, from operational to transformational, from a cost controller to innovation engine. And that's a very exciting place for me to be, because these are some of the things I'm passionate about and I love doing.
And of course, many will know Wiley as the education-focused platform. So I would imagine that the shift to remote learning has been a huge impact on you all. But have there been any changes as a whole in your customers' usage since the pandemic, if we look back over the last 12 months?
Yeah, pretty dramatically, right? Especially over the last 12 months. And it's one of the things I love about it. A lot of the changes are in line with changes we have been trying to get our customers to make, not entirely successfully, for the past 10 years, right? We've been trying to say, hey, here are some great ways to do online education. Here are some great ways to make sure that research is available to everybody. And especially in education, where you've got people who are very used to in-class training and in-class education, it can be very hard to get people to move off of those models. But the pandemic has been a forcing factor. So we've seen, and Wiley is very diverse, right? One of the things I've learned about Wiley is just how much Wiley does. Research is one of the biggest, is actually the bigger revenue driver for us. But my point is only that we've been pushing these transformations towards open access research, towards online education. The pandemic has made that a forcing function. And across many of our markets, many of our various markets, we've actually seen a significant uptick during this challenging time.
And I'm curious, what was it that made you decide to adopt the Dynatrace platform? Was there a story there?
Yeah, I think there's a few stories to adoption of Dynatrace. Now, I have to say that this was before I got there, so I can't take credit for it. But I have talked to my teams and do have some insight to get there. I think first and foremost, if we look at the core component of transformation that Wiley's going through, I think we look at a transformation from technology as an enabler, like technology is something we know we need to use, to understanding that technology is the core of what we do. And when you take that shift in focus, you recognize the need, always on, always available, but also to operate in a more unified and cohesive way, not a completely federated way. And the reality was that before Dynatrace, there were no standards. There were lots of different point solutions, which had worked for a time, but it was becoming evident that as these technology services were really the core of our business and the future of our business, we needed to take a more unified and holistic approach, specifically around relaunching a major platforms like Wiley Plus. And then there was a lot of different differentiators that brought us to the Dynatrace platform. Specifically things like the Smartscape technology, which enables us to see all the dependencies between our services. We have a lot of different services we offer, Neil, and across a whole bunch of different avenues of distribution. And it's next to impossible to get a full picture without technology like Smartscape. The other thing that I think that was very important for us was this ability to do a multi-tenant configuration. Wiley, if you've been watching us, have been doing several different acquisitions, right? And this isn't new, but it's accelerated somewhat. But even looking back over many years, we've been acquiring companies, some of which continue to operate relatively independently. But we want to provide the same great availability for those acquisitions as we do for our core businesses, right? And so that multi-tenant ability is key for us, though, there. I think the other two things I'll mention is a single agent. My team loves it. They love to be able to not have to manage different agents for everything. For me, I really appreciate the completeness of solution, right? There's a lot of discussion, and I've been in operations and talking about monitoring and DevOps space and observability for a very long time. And there's a lot of talk about the right balance in the number of different tools you need, right? And I'll say I don't believe that's one, but I also don't believe it's 500. Right? I also don't believe you need a tool for each environment or a tool for each different OS, right? So it's somewhere between, I'd say, 1 and 50, right? Probably closer to 1. And the fact that Dynatrace does have a very complete solution allows us to use it in many different capacities to continue to protect and enhance our environment.
And as an ex-IT guy, I am very passionate about let's park the tech solution to one side and then focus on the problems and what you want to improve in your business. And then we'll explore what technology best fits that. So bearing in mind everything that we've talked about today, what benefits has Riley seen since implementing Dynatrace? Is there anything that really stands out for you?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. Yeah. I was trying to think about ways to quantify it a little bit, and it's difficult because we didn't have a great solution in place. So measuring the quantifiable difference becomes much more hard. And I'm a metrics guy. I'm a numbers guy. I love to look at how you're actually moving the needle in a quantifiable way. And we don't have the data to compare it because we didn't have the before picture as well nailed down. But we have a great picture today. And I'll tell you, we see improvements across everything from, from reduction in incidents, improved stability, faster release time, overall just an improved experience for our end users, which is really what it comes down to is the experience for our customers, for learners and researchers around the world. I'll tell you specifically the focus of reducing mean time to resolve incidents, where it has been a huge help. The AI-driven full stack observability really, really helps us get faster time to identify that root cause so that we can get faster time to remediate incidents when they occur. And we took the opportunity in really implementing our new monitoring landscape to also reduce the noise in the equation, to reduce false positives. And as part of our toolset implementation, we drove down our noise by over 50%. And that means when we're getting alerts, they're focused on real problems that are happening. And Dynatrace has really been part of that solution. The other thing I'll just share here is when issues do occur, it gets us to the solution faster. I sometimes listen in on the incident calls. I try not to interrupt because we got great teams who can know the issues better than I do and can resolve the issues really well without me jumping in. But there was one call in particular that I recall. There was a lot of finger pointing when the call started, a lot of, hey, we don't see the problem here. We don't see the problem here. And then one of the engineers who works with Dynatrace got on the call. And very quickly, that conversation changed because it wasn't about who didn't have a problem. It was about what he was seeing. And he said, well, it looks like every Tuesday around this time, around 5 p.m., something going on. Wasn't biased by Vantage or tool set. It was just the facts. And he identified, now he wasn't an expert in the system, but he was able to identify that around that time, there was a garbage collection process that was running long because their heap stack was too small. Now, he wasn't an expert in an application. He wasn't an expert in heap stack, but he said, look, Dynatrace is showing me that there's a problem here. And soon, coincidentally, very shortly thereafter, the vendor for this application called up and said, hey, it looks like there may be a problem with the heap stack in this system. Can you try adjusting it? Right? The question was no more about whose problem it was. It was about getting to solution, sharing data, sharing information. That sort of transparency, that sort of drives collaboration. And that drives better results for our customers, and that's what matters.
And I think looking back, one of the last tech conferences that I was able to go to was Dynatrace Perform in Las Vegas. And we all know what happened a month after that event. And of course, this year's Dynatrace Perform was more of a virtual event because of the travel lockdowns. But
that's right.
I'm curious, how was participating in Dynatrace's Perform conference earlier this year? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And where can our listeners catch you later this year too? So
Dynatrace Perform, it was great to be part of that event. Yeah. As I said, I've got a passion for observability for this space, something I love to be involved with. It's hard to connect. It's definitely hard to connect, and it's hard to disconnect. And these are things that I found out about attending all sorts of conferences. I think Perform did a good job of drawing those connections. We've got to find a way to force everyone else to stop sending email during conferences. That won't be perfect. Because it's very hard unless you are physically somewhere to really say, oh, yeah, that I'm not available for these things, and to give it full dedicated attention. I hope that next year, the year after, I can be there in person because it was really well put together and really, really exciting to be part of it. I have a bunch of talks I'll be doing later this year, a couple of podcasts coming up. I don't know that there's one particular that I'd highlight, but certainly encourage people to connect with me on LinkedIn, where I'm at Sean, or I'm Sean D. Mack NYC. And on Twitter, where I'm at Sean D. Mack NYC. Follow along. I love to have conversations, love to be engaged with the community. And I'll be posting there about upcoming talks and upcoming conversations like this one.
Fantastic. Well, I'll have those links to the blog post that will accompany this episode. And one other thing for listeners, what's the best way of staying up to speed with all the developments at Wiley? What's the best starting point for that?
Yeah, Wiley is a great company. Lots of great and exciting stuff going on. Like I said, I love being involved with the global education and research community. You can find out more about Wiley at wiley.com or on Twitter at Wiley Global. And the last thing I'll say there is it's also a great place to work. You're passionate about technology, check out wiley.com/careers.
Thank you so much for putting that there. I will add links to the blog post, like I said a few moments ago. There's so much I've loved about our conversation today and learning about the journey that you've been on. But of course, I think Dynatrace do deserve a special mention here for how well they handled that virtual conference. I mean, as a journalist, they set up things like virtual wine tasting and just to try and blur those lines between offline and online and bring that same experience to life. It was great what they did there. And hopefully, let's say next year, if the events are open back up, maybe we can meet and have a nice cold beer. But more than anything, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely, Neil. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Big thank you to Sean for sharing what challenges Wiley have been facing over the last 12 months today and how they're going to overcome them in the future, especially when it comes to both its IT environment and security. It was also great to hear real-world challenges and about their experiences with Dynatrace. But please, I realise this is just one story. And every single person listening to this podcast, every organisation, have all got very similar stories and experiences too. And the reason I record and publish this podcast every day is to get everybody to share their stories, and then maybe we can all learn a thing or two together. So please, I implore you to share your story, your experience with me. If you'd like to come on the podcast, if you'd like to ask a question or just leave a few comments, please. Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, etc. is just @NeilC.Hughes. And if you do have a few moments to rate and review this podcast wherever you listen, I would really appreciate that too, as it does help the podcast stand out and look attractive to those pesky AI-driven algorithms that we're all at the mercy of right now. So please, keep those messages coming in. I'll be back again tomorrow with another interview, but a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.